Superman debuted in 1938 and was a complete flop. People cannot just grasp the concept of superhuman people with powers. They wanted their comic books to be more human, with people taking up traits of insects as a theme for their costumes. Blue Beetle became the first legacy character and has continued on to this day almost 75 years later. With the war effort, heroes like Red Bee popped up, and just the industry blew up with many, many, many more, such as the Green Hornet, who transitioned from radio to comics. People liked their heroes human. Superman attempted to make a comeback in the early 60s by adopting a more insect-like persona that just did not take. His cast with the Insect Queen tried to do the same thing. Then in 1962, with the debut of Spider-Man, things started taking an awful turn. They were trying to force these down the readers' throats. Their heroes were able to shrink. They were able to fly. They fought monsters. And with the human fly in the 70s, people had had enough. The comic book industry was starting to fold, and the bubble was about to pop. Our super-powered insect heroes were on the run. Things had come full circle, just as they had with Superman. We were able to fool people for a while, but people wanted their heroes to be more human. And things took a turn for the worst until Ambush Bug arrived and saved the industry. We all should thank Keith Giffen for Ambush Bug. Yep, I'm doing a video on Ambush Bug. Now, Ambush Bug actually started, he made his debut in DC Comics Presents number 52 back in 1982. And it was Superman and the Doom Patrol teaming up. I thought I had that, and I know I ran across it 2-3 times to buy it just this last summer at flea markets, and I didn't get it. Number 1, I thought I had it. Number 2, I bought V from Vendetta number 1, and I'm alright with that. Okay. So, I discovered Ambush Bug in around 1985 when I was getting my appendix out. And I was in the hospital for a few days, and people started sending me comic books because they knew I liked them. And I did not know what to make of this guy. First, I just did not like him. Okay, comic books are serious, because when this came out and this came out, you know, the way I remember it, we were knee deep in Watchmen. We were knee deep in Squadron Supreme. Dark Knight Returns was right around the corner. Frank Miller had been making some rumblings with, you know, with some of the work he had done with his Daredevil and his Ronin. And X-Men were just huge at the time, you know, serious stuff. Wolverine, grim and gritty, was creeping up on us and stuff. And just out of the blue, you know, on the other end of the spectrum, you know, we get something to remind us not to take things so serious. It's okay to laugh, okay? And this is just, the character, like I said, started out like, from what I can tell, I never read the story, but, you know, he was just a dead-on villain who was probably psychotic, schizophrenic and stuff, just kind of nuts. And an attorney, some kind of prosecutor or something, got killed. I don't know whatever happened with that. And the character just got sillier and sillier. Now, basically, the biggest thing that I understand with the Ambush Bug is that he is able to teleport. And it comes from the suit. And those antennae on his head pick up little bitty bugs that are flying around wherever. They could be all over the world, you know, and he could zone in on them, and that's how he knew where he was going to teleport at. And they kind of touch on that. As the character kind of progressed and stuff, you know, in a comic parody of a few other stories, you know, his costume got altered, he got stuck in it, it got turned to black, and they kind of dropped the whole, or just stopped mentioning the whole idea about the bugs flying around. Now, is it this one? What I started picking up on were some of the in-jokes that were going on, first of all, with Ambush Bug. You know, we got a story here where he's working on his little tiny bugs, he's talking to himself, and the guy just never shows up. I mean, shuts up. He just goes and goes and goes. Well, something goes terribly wrong, the bug blows up, he gets all energized, and he turns black. And this is actually a parody of Spider-Man's costume turning black around this time. Maybe a year before that. And he ends up putting a bag on his head, and he says, "Why this bug? I never went near the Secret Wars." In jokes. It's almost like the character breaks the fourth wall. He's right on the verge, if not jumping right into it, of real knowing he's in a comic. Okay, he breaks the fourth wall, and it was just kind of, you know, it doesn't sound like a big deal now, but you know, to me, this really kind of started with the ambush bug because, you know, he was just doing it, and it was a gradual thing. It's almost like Keith Giffen was just building up on his jokes upon his jokes until he found the true voice of what he wanted the ambush bug to be. I don't know. And then he started mocking about how, you know, guest appearances and things will just make the book fly up. And this whole story, it starts out with an ongoing character named Peabody, Dicker, and Pending of a lawyer firm. That's the name of the lawyer firm. I never realized which one he was. But, you know, they're doing litigation and stuff for him, so Ambush Bug starts going around trying to find a guest star. And I don't know if this is for his miniseries, the story. And he goes over there and he has a little thing going on with Superman. Superman won't take him serious. He's just annoying as crap. And he makes the Ambush Bug mad, and we get a little Hulk parody there. Wow. And he goes on and he talks to Batman. He talks to Wonder Woman. And he comes up with the Uh-Oh Squad, which is just a big-time jab at the X-Men at the time. Got Miss Mohawk there. Things that were going on just get sillier and sillier. Where he even meets the Teen Titans, and they're like, no. And this is where the Ambush Bug was starting to be full-out comedy. And I don't remember the timeline and stuff here, but I recommend that this book, whether, you know, just check it just because it's a funny, hilarious, solid story. Superman and the Legion of Superheroes. The Ambush Bug is in this. On the first page, Superman is starting to fly, and what he's doing, he's going to travel through. Back then, he could travel through time by flying really fast, and the Ambush Bug teleports and ends up on his back, ends up getting tangled up in his cape, is in the future, and he never really figures out he's in the future. And his bugs are just flying around. He must keep them in his antenna and stuff. And you got the Legion of Substitute Heroes doing their thing, and you've got Ambush Bug just flying around this future. You know, the Superman Museum is there. He could at any minute find out who Superman really is. And the science police come after him, and he finds this piece of cake in a museum encased in glass, telling him to back off or he's going to break the cake. Meanwhile, he got so tangled up in Superman's cape, he's still wearing the cape flying around. I mean, it's just like, it's just hilarious. And then we got DC Comics Presents number 81 here, where Ambush Bug and Superman, thanks to some red kryptonite, end up switching minds for 24 hours. So we have the Ambush Bug in Superman's body, and we are trying to figure out his powers, and we have Superman just like trying his patience because he's in Ambush Bug's body, and they're both trapped at the, you know, he's trapped at the Fortress of Solitude, and he's trying to figure out how to teleport. He ends up like in the ocean and everything. Alright, so time went on, and Ambush Bug ended up getting his own mini-series. And we sort of, between the Action Comics and this, we sort of get Ambush Bug's origin, if you can believe it. And basically what happened is that it's a parody of Superman's origin. A man had made a rocket, his planet was supposed to blow up, and he looked at his little bratty kid and figures he can fit in there. So instead he decides to save his wardrobe. So he puts the wardrobe in the rocket instead of the snotty-nosed little spoiled kid. Sends it to Earth, gets bit by a gigantic spider, radioactive giant space spider, and all the clothes get altered, and when they get down here, you know, little Erwin Schwab puts it on and he can teleport. It also made his arch nemesis, who I don't think he really realizes his arch nemesis is a Argyle sock with a mask like Dr. Doom on, and he's Argyle. Yeah. So anyway, you know, it was just starting out with jokes and stuff, and we meet the epic story of Cheeks, the toy wonder. It's a trash truck hit a speed bump because a car tried to almost hit it or something, and the doll lands in his lap, and he thinks it's a sign, so he becomes Cheeks, the toy wonder. Decides to be a hero, and he and Cheeks, he dresses up like in a Superman costume and puts Cheeks in a costume, and they're running around, and this doll just has so much, you know, and it kind of reminds me of the Tick, with that Tick cartoon, the little wooden boy. And he starts kind of making fun of pop culture. Late Night with David Letterman was hitting, you know, makes little references to that. He also makes references to DC's past, the little cartoons they used to put in the books in the 50s and 60s, and Johnny DC pops up. And more you're starting to realize Keith Giffen is getting more and more into the in-jokes and less into the pop culture, and the whole idea of a sidekick being ridiculous to a certain extent. He fights giant koalas, And then this is the one where we go back into DC's past and he finds some of the sillier characters, as in Where Are They Now? And, this is where the Ambush Bug really found his voice. We get like a little who's who section of ridiculous characters. Where are they now? Deceased, Cheeks, And this is where like it just went crazy, man. He talks about weird things happening to the super animals, and what was it? The Millionaires Club. Gosh, what were they called? The Green Team. They showed up in the 70s in a few books, and he kind of updates where they're at. Just these, silly little Silver Age and Bronze Age characters. Little nod to Fred Hembeck. The cartoons. I always watch his videos and realize I either hold it up too long or not enough. So basically, what we're getting into is that now it's the comedy of comic books. Let's not take them so serious. Each one has a funny little story. Even makes fun of the multiple Earths. The continuity game. So, and there's still a little story going on. Why Batmite really retired? Because Batman got all grim and gritty. He has a mustache, and I think he has a wife now. And this is where it really did his voice. Found its voice as comedy. And this is one of my favorite pages, man, because it was like, what if other artists took on the Ambush Bug? And you've got like Frank Miller, Jack Kirby, Ernie Colden, Gil Kane. Who else was big? Steve Ditko. And this is just, Ambush Bug number 3 is where Ambush Bug became Ambush Bug, what he is. It's just a parody of comic books. A little House of Mystery. I mean, if you just love this kind of stuff, this is it. And it goes on and on with the more ridiculous characters. Great stuff, and it went on. And apparently he got a fan following, because a year later we got, instead of a 4-issue miniseries, we got a 5-issue miniseries, Son of Ambush Bug. And brother, it was just all out on this one. Started just more in-jokes, more laughing at DC. A few pages look like Kirby did it, goes along with the plot. And I can't even begin to describe these, because they just go left and right on them, and they're just hilarious. Out of nowhere, the book changes. And of course, we start parodying comics a little bit more. By now I'm pretty sure he knows that he's in a comic book. Is what I'm getting at. He never really comes flat out and says it, but you start getting the hints. And he parodies Flash 123 with the Flash of Two Earths, and starts looking at making light of more of the superheroes, respectful manner. Even goes after Marvel quite a bit. Reminds you of Peter Parker walking away from his Spider-Man costume. And we got our Ambush Bug stocking stuffer. It kind of has a few panels where he has one big splash page where Santa Claus is a mutie and he's not taking it anymore, so up your chimneys, And it carried on. So, I don't think there was a lot of Ambush Bug after 1986, 87. I'm sure, by this time Keith Giffen was doing Justice League, and he was doing Legion, and he'd been doing Legion of Superheroes and getting around, and, And so, all of a sudden, I think Ambush Bug popped up in an issue of 52, and even more talking about how, I'm imagining Jeff Johns probably wrote that part of it. 52 was written by 4 artists. It was a weekly book. That's why it was called 52. Anyway, Ambush Bug popped up in there, and everybody kind of got a chuckle out of it. The fans were still there, and I think that kind of led to the new miniseries that came out. And, it's year none, because DC at the time had year 1. And it was just looking at a lot of things. It started parodying Jack Kirby, Galactus, Silver Surfer, just everything that had been going on with how heavy comics had gotten again. Plays with the multiple Earths and the time stories. He wakes up with Dumb Bunny, finds out he's married. The bug of yesterday. And, this kind of makes fun of a lot of the crossovers that were going on at the time. And, a little nod back to Keith Giffen's Justice League days. This is a parody of Justice League #1, and it's a bunch of the monitors and stuff. And a year later, this was a 6-issue miniseries. A year later, the book became late, so he even made that into a joke. It's like it was so late, they lost the issue #6 and they numbered it #7. So Ambush Bug is good because, you know, as heavy as some comics get, sometimes we just need to back off and laugh at what's out there and look at it. And Ambush Bug is just a jolt of, you know, that you need sometimes to remember that it's just comic books. I personally enjoy it, so I hope you do as well. And I'll go ahead and throw out this, you know, I don't consider him a C-list character, probably like a D, E, or F, if you can consider that. So, you know, just something I enjoy reading, not a die-hard fan. So, and I'm sure there's, you know, the more you read in there, there's going to be something for everybody. So check them out.